Started. All right. We're going to start in three, two, one. Welcome, everybody, to Geekvice episode 181, proving any vice with enough geek can become a virtue. My name's Morph. That man's Kip. Good evening, Kip.
Good evening.
How are you doing this wonderful Sunday evening?
Awesome. Just got done watching episode one of season 7 of Game of Thrones.
Ooh, that's right. That did start today, didn't it?
Freaking phenomenal.
I have not watched that. I spent the last weekend completely gone off the grid. I didn't even have cell signal, not even just not even just wireless internet signal. No, no cell signal at our campsite whatsoever. We went on our annual once a year adult only float trip and indulged in a few beverages and a few more beverages, floated down a river in a canoe, drank some more beverages.
I'm sensing a theme.
Yeah, it was good. It was good. We got back early this afternoon. I'm a little sleep deprived, so if I slur my words, it's not because I'm drinking. I have not drank at all today. I'm just a little sleep deprived.
Well,
I
that can
say,
happen.
yeah, I say as I take a drink.
There you go. Am I
Uh,
sleep deprived or am I just an alcoholic?
yeah,
Let me have a beer and think about that.
it's just water. It's just water, but still, you got to rehydrate after a long weekend out in the sun and on the river. But it was a beautiful weekend. I mean, geez, I couldn't have asked for a better weekend. We didn't get a drop of rain. It rained on us on Friday on the way down to our campsite, but then it never rained again once we got there and started trying to set up camp. Never, not a drop of water came from the sky. All of it was in the river as we were floating down, so that was awesome.
Nice.
Also, the first time on our float trip that we have seen uh, wildlife if kind of on the river. Usually, there's enough people on the river and it's kind of noisy and things like that that you don't see, the animals all kind of scurry away. There was one point where it was us and another couple. So there was two canoes floating down this river, and we actually saw a raccoon. We're assuming the mom and a baby raccoon that were fishing out of the river. Pulled a fish, like we watched them yank a fish out of the river, and over on the bank in the weeds were eating this fish. Like that was kind of cool.
That is pretty dang cool. I've never seen anything like that.
Yeah, me neither. Me neither. It was really awesome. So it was kind of cool watching this baby raccoon just stare at us as we floated down the river. Like it was looking at us like, I wonder if you have anything we could eat. So yeah, that was awesome. Never seen anything like that. Lots of herons out there on the river. Heard a whole bunch of turkeys, but nothing as cool as the raccoons. That was something I had not seen before on the river. So, but you had a geeky weekend because you sent me a text, even though I didn't get it until today. You sent me a text Friday. You were playing Legendary. What are your initial thoughts on Legendary?
So the people we played with, he has all the expansions,
Yeah.
including the villains.
Okay.
I guess the villains can still be played as a standalone.
Yes.
He even had that. We played 2 games. Of course, he won both of them. But the game is a lot of fun. It's a deck building, so it has all the elements you're used to if you've played Dominion or Thunderstone or Sentinels of the Multiverse, that kind of thing. But it was just fun being able to recruit Thor or Captain America into your deck, and
Yeah.
be able to do some things. And this will surprise you, but Holly wants to own the game now.
What? Oh,
Yeah,
are you telling me Holly played too?
she played as well. Yes.
What? No
Yeah.
way. That
Yep.
is awesome. So, what heroes did you have out there to recruit?
In the first game, we had Black Widow, Captain Thor. Dang it. Um, oh, I can see the card. Can't remember what he was called. But he was the one to use this card. You have to discard a card from your hand. I hated that guy. He
Oh,
looks like Vision on the card, but he's not Vision. He's holy crap. I'm terrible at this.
oh, now I didn't
And
bring.
then
If I was smart, I would have brought all of my cards down, but I didn't do that.
yeah. In the second game, we had Spider Man. We had Thor again. We had Storm. We had Hawkeye.
Did
And
trying
we
to
played
think.
Loki in the second game, which was
Loki's
he's
he's
fucking hard.
yeah, he's tough.
We ended up tying with Loki. We ran out of the hero deck.
Ah,
The first one was man, Spider-Man's arch nemesis,
uh,
Venom.
oh, you played Venom in the first game?
Yeah, I think it was Venom, and we won.
That's a good one. Venom's a tough one too.
I think it was Venom. That's at least that's what the card looked like. I was dumb enough to not wear my reading glasses, so I really couldn't see the cards.
Hmm, I
Like,
understand.
yeah, that's part of the problem of being old. But
Yeah.
had a good time playing the game. I mean, the whole moving the bad guys through the city, trying to kill, take them out,
Yeah.
recruiting heroes. The whole deck building, shuffling thing. You're constantly doing something anyway, and to me, each turn went pretty fast unless you ended up having the cards were saying, okay, this card says I can draw the top three cards from the deck, pick one, put the other two somewhere else. And then this one says I get to just draw a card, and then the card I drew says I can draw another card, and next thing you know, somebody's turn is getting out of control, but
Right.
that's okay.
And that usually happens towards the end when you're getting close to the end of it because it's just like you it's just like here this does a million different things and you start getting all the right cards to play. But sometimes those turns, even though they take a long time, they feel really cool because you're like, man, I feel like everything that I've been working up to has like just happened to come out at the right time.
Yeah. So for those who haven't played it, you have a villain deck, and as you turn their card over and add them to the city, and they have a certain amount of, I guess you could say, hit points to take them out, and then they're worth a victory point. Well, when you play Loki, you have to put 12 heroes in the villain deck, and you've got to fight them. Their value plus 2,
Yeah.
and they don't have any victory points, but you have to beat them. And I was the guy that kept taking out the turned heroes in the city, so I was getting no victory points. So, of course, I didn't win, but me not winning is not unusual. It's just that
Well,
I did more than carry my weight, but I didn't
yeah.
get victory points because I took care of the guys that weren't.
See, and
Um,
that's that's where that is probably where I don't like the way some people play Legendary, because they play it like that where the victory points really decide who wins, and in my opinion the victory points should only count for who wins if you defeat the mastermind. So, like in that case, you said you tied Loki. You ran out of heroes in the hero deck, which means you don't actually win. So that means nobody wins. Therefore, it doesn't
Right.
matter how many victory points you have because you got a big F you. You got beat by the mastermind.
Well, we actually tied the mastermind, so we can't say he won either. So
So, yeah. So there's a fine line there, but I'd like to tell whoever it was you were playing with, let him know that he didn't win even though he had the most victory points because he didn't beat the mastermind. And that's the point of Legendary. Not get victory points. It says it in
well,
the rules even.
well, that's what we did,
Yeah,
and
no, and it's fun. That game is a lot of fun, and it's so many different ways. That's the best thing. You said you played twice, and neither game probably had anything like the other games because
no, that's the thing. Is both games were completely different. The villain in the first game, whether it was Venom or not, I'll have to ask my friend who it actually was. We actually defeated him.
yeah.
It only took 7 to hit him, and so
Oh,
once we got
how about Red Skull?
it was Red Skull.
I looked at
Why
the
did I
picture you
think
sent
Venom?
me.
Why did I think Venom? Holy cow! Oh, because of the artwork on the board. That's what
Oh,
I was thinking of.
and the
It kind
scheme
of reminds
twists
me of-
all have Venom on them. Yeah,
yeah, that's why. Okay. Sorry, brain scrambled after watching Game of Thrones.
you're
But
good.
yeah, Red Skull wasn't that bad.
Yes,
Uh,
he
we
he he's
once
the he's the mastermind that the game recommends you start playing with your very first game
so
because
that's probably why it was set up for us that way.
yeah he has the most moderate amount of things that he does as well as being the lower end of the points. What is really funny though is when you start looking at the synergies between masterminds and schemes, Red Skull can actually become really hard when you go with. I think the scheme is something to do with the cosmic cube. I think it, or it's I can't remember, or it's the escape. It's the breakout one, but it basically all the bad guys or a certain number of scheme twists put more bad guys on the board. Every escaped villain then becomes like powers up the bad guy, and every time a master strike comes out, it powers up the bad guy. So your mastermind at one point, I think we were playing against Red Skull, but instead of him only being 7 attack to defeat, he ended up being like 15 attack to defeat, and he ended up kicking our trash. So it's and that's the thing about Legendary that is so cool, and I'm so glad you got to play it, even though it wasn't with me. I hope we get to play it soon together because it's fun because every time you play it, no matter if you have the base set game or every expansion, every game's going to be a little bit different, especially if you randomize your heroes and your mastermind and your schemes. Like they're going to every game's going to be just a little bit different because each card works with the other cards just a little bit differently. So,
Yeah, that's the cool element of it is, depending on who comes out and all that other stuff, it does change. The downside to the game is setup and teardown could take a while, sorting all the
yes,
cards and getting all the deck shuffled and everything like that. It does take some time, but
that it does.
the payoff is there. So spend the time, do it right, and it has a pretty good payoff.
Yeah, there's also what does make it a little bit easier for setup is there is an app It is an unofficial app, but it is a legendary uh, randomizer. So you can actually, with a couple clicks of a button, have it randomize who you need, your scheme, your mastermind, your heroes, your villains, your henchmen, every card that you need. It'll tell you exactly what it is. It'll even tell you how many bystanders to add, additional bystanders to the villain deck, how many different things need to be like in if a special rule that needs to have a certain amount of something. It'll tell you in there, and so you can just have that, randomize it real quick, have that screen up, and then start flipping through your cards to find what you need. It speeds it up a little bit, but still finding all those cards and getting them put in the decks uh, can take some time, especially if you've got all the expansions.
Yeah, because 12 expansions, he's got to have thousands of cards by now because he had all the boxes
Yeah,
and they were completely full of cards. And
yeah,
thankfully, he did use the app, so it would like, okay, this is what we recommend. And so it was just a matter of digging them. He knew where his stuff was, so he
yeah.
could pull out pretty fast. We could get things shuffled. So it was good. I was just excited that Holly liked the game as much as she did, to the point that she wants to own the game.
Yeah.
Kind of gives me hope for the future, or maybe I can get her to play some other stuff.
Right.
Yeah,
Right.
maybe stuff that I own
Well,
already.
and there's a bunch of legendary, like there's, legendary is a Marvel deck building game, but there are other like skins basically to legendary that have things like aliens versus predator. What's some of the others? There's a firefly one, I believe. So they're basically the same game with just those characters from that universe and the villains from that universe that are in there and schemes that fit for that universe. So it's a whole different game, or I guess a whole different look, same kind of setup for rules and gameplay. So it can just even expand that even more. So Legendary is a cool game, and I am so glad that you got to play it.
I am too. It was a good time. I'm not much. Little disclosure here. I'm really not much into the card games, the ones that are cards only.
Yeah.
Uh, Smash Up, and I actually got bored with Thunderstone after a while. Dominion. I don't know. After a while, to me it feels like it's just people sitting around the table playing solitaire. But with Legendary, there's a lot more interaction. You actually feel like you're playing the game together
Yeah.
instead of separately. So to me, that was the big difference.
Well, and
So
I think also along that same line is Legendary is really a cooperative game first,
yes,
and then a competitive game.
yeah, and
Uh,
that's what's to me saves it for me. I mean,
yeah,
otherwise,
because talking at the table saying, "Hey guys, there's this character out there. There's a hero on the helicarrier that I really want to get, and I think I can get a like I need him to synergize with the rest of my cards, and it'll make me really powerful and really helpful to defeat the mastermind that is kicking our ass right now." Like, if you have a good group at the table that isn't just out for themselves and are trying to play that game in a cooperative way, they can look at you and go, "All right, you can have that card, but I want that one there, so don't take that one." And you can kind of work that out. And to me, that's part of the cooperative thing. That's like table talking during, pandemic, or Forbidden Island or something like that, where if you're not talking out your strategy, you guys are screwed. And I think
yeah,
Legendary can fall in that same category.
it very much could. And it's also the kind of game that, unlike Pandemic, you can put a halt to the one person just takes over and just tells everybody what to do.
Mm-hmm.
The way Legendary plays, if you have somebody at your table that wants to do that, you can just, kind of ignore them, and it doesn't hurt the game any.
Right. Right.
So that
Yeah,
so if
because
you hate the cooperative games where somebody just takes over and tells everybody what to do, this one doesn't have it.
yeah, agreed. So, we also let's see. You saw this. When did you see this movie that we're going to talk about here? You saw it a week ago,
Yeah, the
opening
day
weekend.
after we returned from O Comic Con.
So you went and saw Spider-Man: Homecoming,
Yes.
and you said we needed to talk about this on the show this week. And I said, well, I haven't seen it yet, but I really want to see it, so I forced myself into making sure that I got to see this movie before tonight so we can talk about Spider Man Homecoming. Now, we will try our best to keep this as spoiler free as possible. However, that's probably not going to happen. So, fair warning now. We are going to talk about this movie. We're going to talk about some things in this movie. And if you don't want to hear anything about this movie or don't want to take the chance of being spoiled, you should probably push pause now, get in your car, go drive to your local movie theater, go watch this movie, come back, and then you can listen to this now. Listen to us after that. Um, because this is a really good movie, and dare I say, maybe the best Spider-Man movie. I
I will go out there and say that I think it is. For me, it's the best Spider-Man
I
movie.
think I'm gonna put it number a close second, if not the best, because
Which one do you think's the best, or
I really liked the very first Tobey Maguire Spider-Man. But I think the reason that I really liked that movie was because that was the first movie. That was, it
no?
just had that nostalgia to it, that awesomeness, that we're finally getting that Spider-Man movie. So I would say that that one is the best, but this one is right there with it. Even so much so that I loved the opening credits when they're playing a remixed version of the original
The fight from Civil
intro.
War.
Yeah.
Oh, that. Oh, okay. The
No,
intro.
the original intro to Spider-Man. So the music they were playing was the original Spider-Man that has the awesome, it's like, what is that, the 70s Spider-Man?
Yeah,
Yeah.
I thought you meant the home video that Peter
Oh,
Parker took.
now that was genius too, but I think it even started before that. When the when the opening credits were going and it was that song, I looked at I looked at my wife and said, "Oh, that's the 70s Spider-Man. This
Yeah,
is going to be good." Like, they even just took that little bit of, yes, this is Spider-Man and this is awesome, and here you go.
yeah,
Strap in because you're going for a ride.
yeah. And thankfully, they saved us a total origin story. We didn't have to sit through Uncle Ben dying again.
Nope.
We didn't have to sit through him being bitten by a radioactive spider again. He was already Spider-Man, but now he wants to be an Avenger, and he doesn't realize that it's himself holding him back. He thinks it's Tony Stark holding him back, and
Yeah.
to me, that's what the whole movie is about: is him learning more about himself, his limitations, his abilities. He's an awkward teenager, and Tom Holland pulled that off.
Oh,
He he
amazingly.
he nailed that awkward teenager. I mean, here's a guy who's super strong, fights crime, still can't talk to the cute girl in school. I thought that was pretty cool. I like that.
Well, and it was, yeah, there was a couple points in there where I just looked at it and like, oh, that was an incredible nod. That was an incredible, like, yes, that's the awkward teenager. The one part where he goes to the what is her name? Lizzie, right?
Yeah, Liz.
He goes to Liz's party because he gets invited because he knows uh he knows Spider-Man, and he goes to the party, and then they have this whole thing where he was going to show up at the party, and then he was going to leave, and then go change into a spider suit, and then swing into the party, and kind of be there and be the cool guy, and make Peter look cool again, or ever first time. But he's standing up above, and he's looking down, and he's like, what am I doing? And it was just that perfect, like, that's that awkward high school kid, that's that awkward teenager going, I'm trying to be cool, but this really isn't going to make me cool type of look. And I thought that was a perfect way to sum up everything that was Peter Parker, like, right there. He did have, Peter did have like this innocence to him. It was just that he had no idea what he was doing, but he really wanted to help people. He wasn't out there trying to be the superhero. He was just trying to go out there and help people. And I liked the whole scene where him going through, and he was just like helping the little guy, and he was like giving directions to an old lady, and he goes and tries to stop a guy from breaking into a car, and then ends up setting the car alarm off to call the cops, and everybody just comes out their windows and tells him to get out of there because he's being noisy.
Yeah.
I thought those were great scenes. um, I gotta say, so they nailed that part of it. I think the Ned part of it I thought was a little over the top, but he still fit perfect with comic relief. Like, whenever you need something to just look at him and be like to just lower the tension with a little bit of with goofy humor, he was perfect for that.
Yeah, he was an awkward teenager whose friend is this unknown, totally famous, but nobody knows it's him, and he wants the world to know and all this other stuff, but he can't say anything.
Yeah,
I like that. He's a heavier kid, and they didn't go with the fat kid's the dumb kid, which I
yeah,
appreciated.
right.
Uh, like you said, for comic relief, he was great. He was also kind of the voice of reason in some ways for Peter Parker.
Yeah,
He's like, you're freaking Spider-Man, and all this other stuff, and kind of I guess you'd say like the reverse voice of reason. He made Peter Parker have to make tough decisions,
yeah.
and I think that worked for him.
When I thought it was great, I think my favorite scene with Ned was uh, when he finds out that Peter is Spider-Man. He's sitting in his room holding like a Lego Death Star, which I also thought was really funny that he came over to help, like, so that Peter could help him finish the Lego Death Star. Anyone who has seen the box for the Lego Death Star, or just looked up how many pieces that is, when he finds out Peter is Spider-Man, and he drops that Lego Death Star that looked like it was almost complete, um, that and it just shatters into pieces. Like, I almost started crying right there.
Yeah, yeah, I can understand that. It's I don't know. To me, it felt with Ned, with Peter Parker, with I guess Michelle was her name, and
Yeah,
all that. It felt like high school. It honestly did. Um, Especially those of us who were just completely awkward, uncool, like I was. It just kind of it felt right, and
right.
and then on top of the teenagers being so well, Michael Keaton was great.
Yes, yes, he was.
And what I liked about it is he's a villain who's not evil just for the sake of being evil. There was a reason he was doing what he was doing, and it wasn't just because he likes to see the world burn. And he played that really well. He played a bad guy who didn't know he was a bad guy, and or he kind of knew, but he felt justified for being that way. And I don't know,
Yeah.
it worked really great. And then his interactions with Peter Parker were intense. I mean, they were subtle, but they were intense, and especially when they're in the car. I'm not going to give much more of it away than
Oh,
that.
geez, that scene was amazing. And even then, like that whole build up to that whole, like the moment he walked in, Peter walked into his house and saw him and knew immediately that that's who it was. And, Toombs looks at him and doesn't know who he's looking at, and then has to put it together in the car while it's amazing. That was acting, directing, and writing at its best right there. That was a scene that had no fighting in it whatsoever, but it was so perfectly played.
It was, and you could feel the tension. You could feel the panic
Yeah.
from Peter Parker. It was, like you said, it was just so well done.
Yes.
Uh, so Michael Keaton, fantastic. Another thing that I liked, the movie wasn't stolen by Tony Stark.
Yeah. Yeah. No. Tony
He,
Stark was in there just enough.
yeah, he was great when he was there, but he didn't steal the movie, which I'm sure even Tom Holland is thankful for that because it could have easily gone that way,
Well, and
especially
it
when you
was
saw the trailers.
Yeah, and it was perfectly played with this idea that Tony Stark was almost. I thought it was great that they played it as a Tony Stark as the fatherly figure, and they even made a reference in there that Tony's at one point he like puts his arm around him or something, and he's like, "I didn't have a father, so this is me trying to you know be a good father or something along that lines, and or be that fatherly figure." And even Peter Parker just looks at him like, "What?" It was just like, "Do you even know what you're doing?" And the answer is no. Like he didn't. Like Tony Stark didn't have all the answers, and that was good because if he did have all the answers, um, it would have it would have hurt things. The other thing that I want, while we're on the Tony Stark topic, something that kind of I thought the movie did an okay job with, but I would like to see them build upon this for the next movie is Peter Parker being a genius almost was played down a little bit too much in my opinion. The the
Yeah.
I the idea that he was smarter than everybody else, that he created the web shooters, that he created, they do in the movie they do kind of pick up and play in there. There's a whole like montage in there about him trying to create the web fluid to make his webs. And he's doing it like in a drawer in science class type thing. That was cool, and they put that in there, but I'd like to see. I thought it was some of the genius of Peter Parker was taken away by Tony Stark because it was Tony Stark's suit that had all the gadgets and bells and whistles, not Peter Parker's.
Yeah, and that's true. And like you said, they alluded to how smart he was. I mean, they had that high school team. The
Yeah,
I want to say,
academic.
yeah, that's not the right word, but and he was the best one on the team, and
Right.
he, like you said, he created the web fluid, and he did all these things, but it was so far in the background, you kind of forgot it that he was boy genius,
Yeah.
and that's I think that's mainly because they didn't cover it all, but secondarily because he was the awkward teenager we keep talking about.
Right.
Yeah, he's super smart, but he's not worldly, and
Yeah.
So that made it that I thought that played fairly prominent. I don't know.
I
I
don't.
didn't have a problem with it.
Yeah, well, and I mean that's the thing. It's a minor complaint because it didn't hurt the movie at all, and I would just like to see. I mean, they did it a little bit when Tony Stark took away his suit and said you can't have it anymore, and Peter Parker still goes out there to be Spider-Man, and he goes out there with the stuff that the only stuff he has, which is his you know thrown together suit and some web shooters, and ends up causing wreaking havoc with those just anyway. Um, so it's and the fact that they hack Tony Stark's suit, with between Peter and Ned, they hack the suit and get more abilities. So they did play it in there, and that was okay. Like I'm not saying that it was wrong the way they did it. I thought it was very well done. It was just my one little complaint with Tony Stark. But it was they needed Tony Stark in the movie to make the connection with the Marvel universe. So that's okay too.
Yeah.
Also, with that connection, I love their montage that they did about like the home video, like vlogging type thing that they did with Peter Parker recording everything when he meets Tony Stark and he goes and fights in Civil War, and they show just enough of the Civil War stuff that you go, oh yeah, that was Civil War. Um, to be really cool. I like the throwback of every time, like what was it when Ned finds out that Peter is Spider-Man, and he's like, "Have you met Captain America? Is he really cool?" And Peter's like, "Yeah, I stole his shield." It's like that. I like that part.
Yeah. It's just I don't know. For me, because I think it's the best Spider-Man movie because I bought him as the role he was trying to play.
Yeah.
Um, I also thought Tobey Maguire did a pretty decent job, but I always felt there was something wrong with that movie, kind of stilted or something.
Sure.
It didn't fit for me. Maybe Tobey Maguire looked too old. I don't know what it was.
Yeah.
Uh,
Well, there is
Andrew
that.
Andrew Garfield I thought was fantastic as well. I just didn't like how dark those Spider-Man movies were.
Yeah.
They were just way too dark, especially the death of Gwen Stacy. That whole movie was nothing but dealing with death and regret. I don't want to go to the movie and feel regretful. I want to go to a movie and have a good time, and I think that's what this Spider-Man brought to the table.
Yes.
You could relate to him because we've all been to high school. We know how that goes. Um, we also all want people to see how good at something we really are. And
Yeah.
here he is, Spider-Man. He can't tell anybody.
Right.
And we all want to be a part of something bigger. He wanted to be an Avenger. We can relate to that. We all want to be part of something bigger, something that matters. And here he was, and he thought all these things were getting in his way when he didn't realize it was himself getting in his own way, just like everybody else. So, very relatable movie.
Well, and I'd also throw out there we'd mentioned the fact that there was no origin story um, for Peter Parker and for Spider-Man. Like
Right.
everybody already knows it. They didn't replay it in here, but they did have an origin story for the Vulture and Adrian Toomes, and I thought it was very well done because it was just a little short thing. It was just a little snippet, but you get to see the origin of it, and I thought it was great with the way the writing was done. And this is the difference between Marvel written and everyone else written. Because they wrote this to fit into the Marvel universe, they were able to write things in there like the destruction of Avengers Tower. Um, and it was a flashback. This didn't happen. Adrian Toomes wasn't created after all the other movies. Nope, he was created prior to all these other movies we've seen in the Marvel universe, and really he was maybe post the first Avengers movie, I think is the way it played out. And that was perfect. That
Yeah, it
was
was post first Avengers movie. They were doing the cleanup.
yeah, he was hired. Adrian Toomes' company had the contract from the city of New York to clean up. Yeah, New York, right? Yeah.
Yeah,
Um, had the contract to clean up Avengers Tower and all the alien tech and basically just pick up all the debris. And I thought it was great that not only did Marvel show that that was the reason he was turned into the Vulture or became the Vulture, but also they were able to use material that most people wouldn't know, but a few of us, big comic book geeks caught and saw, and that was Damage Control was referenced, and that was who stopped Adrian Toomes. Damage Control is uh, an old comic series from Marvel that was basically Marvel's answer to what happens to all the destruction from uh, from superhero battles. And I say old comic. It's really not. I guess it's really not that old. The original was late '80s. First appearance 1988, June of 1988. So um, I guess that is. Geez, that's almost 30 years old now.
yeah.
But that was what Damage Control was created for. It was supposed to be. It was supposed to be a way for the government to hide the stuff, the alien stuff that was going on, but still um, keep the city up and running. That's why you'd see a superhero. That was how they explained you'd see a superhero battle, and then the next thing you know, the city was rebuilt. Well, it was Damage Control coming in and cleaning stuff up. So I thought it was great that they used that in this movie.
Well, I didn't know anything about damage control. I just liked the idea that they were the true bad guys.
Yeah,
They were
yeah.
the true. They were the bad guys of the movie, even though they didn't have to pay for what they did. They were the bad guys, and worked for me,
Well, and it
especially with
was
today's political climate. It was kind of nice
exactly.
to see the government be the bad guys again. So
Yeah.
that's the way things are.
Well, and that's the perfect way because that made Adrian Toomes relatable. That made him. Yes, he was the bad guy, but like you said before, it made him the bad guy that really wasn't the bad guy. He was he was screwed over by the government and basically cost him his company, cost him his job, and he took it into his own hands to basically right a wrong. He wasn't, he was still trying to find a way to make money off of what the government had basically taken away from him. He was a scrapper. Like he was a guy that would come in and clean up messes, fix things, and he couldn't do that anymore because Damage Control kind of took all the stuff, took his big contract away from him.
Which was even worse because he bought a bunch of extra equipment, hired a bunch of extra guys,
Yeah,
and now he can't pay for any of it.
right. So,
So
and I thought it was great that he kept stealing from throughout the movie. He kept stealing. If you watch carefully, he was stealing from Damage Control. He wasn't necessarily stealing from anyone else. He was stealing from Damage Control. That's where he was getting his alien tech that he was making alien weapons and then putting them and then selling those weapons.
yep.
So the selling weapons part. I think the one thing that kind of bothered me about Toombs a little bit was the fact that he did end up killing someone. They tried to play it off, as a accident, but it's still kind of. I felt like that might have been a little unnecessary.
Well, I think it came down to, and I could be wrong, but Um, he started down this path for the right reasons, and then I think it went to his head.
Yeah.
The power, the money, it all just went to his head, and at that point, his morality, I guess as you could call it, was gone.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think maybe it was, and this is where writers know better than I do. These guys are professional. They make movies for a living. So no matter what I think is right or wrong, if they do it, then it's probably right. But it maybe it needed to be done. Maybe that scene needed to be in there to show that what Toombs was actually capable of, even though he didn't really want to. Like, I don't know. It just felt like maybe you're right. Maybe that's what was his breaking point. And when he did it, he's like, oh, what the hell else do I have to lose? Now, he uh, he
Yeah,
couldn't
now he's
back down at
rich.
that point.
He's rich. He did all this stuff, so he thinks he did it for all the right reasons, and so how could he be wrong?
Right, right. He just did it for his family. So,
He did it
um,
all for the nookie.
I'm not even going there. Um, so let's see here. This movie is awesome. Yes, you should go see it. Um, I have I had heard rumors that Sony was going to be taking over writing duties for this movie. Um, for the second one, I don't know if that's true or not. It's kind of hard to tell. I don't know what the tale is for the future Spider-Man movies, but I really hope they continue this agreement that they had with this movie for future ones with Marvel and Sony. I hope those two realize that this this agreement, this partnership between the two of them, is the current best possible solution for this franchise. I'm afraid if Sony walks away, says, "Hey, thanks Marvel for rebooting this and making it work. Now we got this," it's really gonna suck. But on the same side of it, what I also like is that they use the Vulture as a villain. To spoiler, they don't kill the Vulture. He gets arrested. So here we go. Here's the build up. Here's your 6 movie franchise here. First, it was the Vulture. We already know that Doc Ock is out there. Maybe we get another little appearance of Doc Ock. Shocker was already mentioned.
Yep.
Um, the so we can have another Shocker out there. I would also, let's see, who else do we got? We need a Rhino. We need the Rhino, Shocker, Doc Ock, the
Venom.
Vulture. We need Mysterio, and we can get our Sinister Six. That's what I want to see. I want to see us build up these movies to get us to a Sinister Six, because those were always my favorite Spider-Man shows and comic books, was when he had to deal with the Sinister Six.
Well, as long as they give some sort of control, back to Marvel there a little bit, because you could tell the difference.
Yeah,
And
yeah,
if they don't, it doesn't matter what they do with the Sinister Six; they're going to screw it up. I have no faith in Sony, I guess is what I'm trying to say.
yeah. And I'm curious. I also don't know how the contract works as far as Spider-Man characters and if Sony owns all of the Spider-Man characters. But for comic book readers, there is another little Easter egg in here, in that the the basically right hand man to Adrian Toomes. He was mentioned. I think he was referred to as the Prowler, which a uh, is the dad of Miles Morales, who is the next Spider-Man in the comic books. He was an Ultimate Universe Spider-Man, but um, he was a multiracial Spider-Man, and that character, that the way they did Miles Morales Spider-Man in the comic books is awesome. And so it kind of opens the door in this movie without anyone ever really, unless you have read those comic books and knew this stuff, that suit that Tony Stark shows Peter Parker at the end of the movie, and Parker
Yeah,
like says, "No, I don't want that one." That's Miles Morales' suit.
I did not know this.
So they have set up another Spider-Man, not just Peter Parker, a whole nother Spider-Man, without anyone ever, like, without making a big deal of it. That is why Marvel makes movies that are so damn successful, because they've already set up a future movie so far down the road that when they make that movie, everyone's gonna go, "Oh my God, that was no." They knew all the way back in 2017 that they were going to make this movie. They just had to get there. Like, that's the awesome part of the way Marvel is telling these stories. They're all connected, and they're not just connected in some like small little way. There is a big story that is connecting all of these movies together, and I can't wait to see what they can do.
Yeah, I like Donald Glover quite a bit. It's too bad he can't be Miles Morales. He ends up being the dad, but it would be nice because I like him a lot that he could have been the
Yeah,
character.
yeah,
So I'll be curious to see who they go with if they decide to go that route.
yeah, and it will be interesting because if Spider-Man is in the next Avengers movies, these big, infinite, what is it called? Infinity
Infinity
Stones?
War.
Is that Infinity Wars? Is that what they're
Infinity
calling it?
War. Yeah.
If Spider-Man is in that movie, there is a chance that there will be some people die in that movie. There will be some superheroes killed in that movie.
Have you
And
seen the leak from D23?
I have not.
Well, it kind of gives you an idea who dies in that one.
Oh, I'm gonna have to check that one out then. We'll have to look that one up. Um,
It's somebody, was at the con and they filmed it with their cell phone, but yeah.
all right. I will have to see if I can't find that after we're done here. Um, but yeah, it just goes to show that Marvel really does plan this stuff out, and this isn't just them throwing a movie out there. They really took the time to write this thing well, and you should go see Spider-Man: Homecoming. Everybody, go see the movie. 2 thumbs up from me.
Same here. And as soon as you get done watching it, you should go home and play Marvel Legendary Deck Builder.
There you go. And you can have Spider-Man in there too.
Yeah.
I think there might actually be a couple versions of Spider-Man in there. So
Yep.
there's even this whole villains that's Spider foes. So there you go.
Go.
All right, everybody. Thanks for listening this week. Um, be sure to go check out our blog, geekvice.blogspot.com. We're putting more stuff up there as we speak. Um, we're going to try to get more stuff up there regularly, so keep an eye out on that thing. You can follow us on Facebook, facebook.com/geekvice, and you can also subscribe to our YouTube channel at tiny.cc/geekvice. You can get to the YouTube channel as well through the Facebook page and subscribe on without ever leaving Facebook. So do that because that'll get you notified when these new videos go live. It also will give you some other stuff that we're doing, like Geekvice Gaming, that comes out on Thursdays, where I sit down and do a let's play of a video game. And you can follow us on Twitter. That man over there at Kip Killigan. You can follow me at Geekvice. And if you want to get a hold of us, the best way to do that is emailing us at geekvice@gmail.com. Email us with your thoughts on Spider-Man Homecoming and why you thought it was better than every other Spider-Man out there. Thanks everyone for listening to our ramblings, and we will see you next week.
Later.
This podcast is part of the Podcast Arcade Network.